What's up, Multiverse? Dr. Dave here. Welcome to the Geek Lounge. So this past weekend, my brother and I attended Comic Con Liverpool, and as always, we had a really good time. Now, I didn't get so much footage filmed, to be perfectly honest with you. Monopoly Events, so Comic Con Liverpool is Monopoly Events' flagship show. They have it twice a year, but they have tons of other cons in like Manchester. There's a few in Scotland. They've got Wales, the Midlands. They actually had a London show earlier this year as well. So they're kind of like well established in the UK, but their cons are much more dedicated to guest interactions. So, you know, getting your photo ops, your selfies, getting autographs, meet and greets, going to panels, things like that. And then in addition to that, they have kind of like the prop and set builds, what you guys are kind of seeing on the screen now in this little montage, where you can get some awesome free photo ops. And then there are, of course, all the traders, you know, selling Funko Pops, t-shirts, all the various different merchandise. And then there is kind of like little gaming sections as well, like retro and I wouldn't say new games, but kind of like games of the last few years that say they're not like an MCM Comic Con where, you know, branding is like heavy with the con. You know, if you guys watched my MCM video from a few weeks ago, you know, Bandai Namco had a huge booth. I mean, they've now connected at least that October show with EGX, but yeah, like Citizen Watches, Lego were there, you know, all these various big brands, right, where certain exclusives are sold or certain things are revealed, like Hasbro Pulse booth as well. You know, Monopoly Events, they don't quite have that. That's something that I would love for, like, to see them add to their shows. I don't know if it will happen. You know, as I said, they're much more kind of dedicated to the guest interactions. And to be perfectly honest, they, at least for me and in the UK, are the best in the business, you know, for getting that kind of diverse guests, you know, from multiple different fandoms. And so, yeah, as I said, my brother and I had a really good time. I really do enjoy the Liverpool show. It's always really busy. I would probably say they get around 40 to 50,000 in attendance. So yeah, it's definitely a lot smaller than MCM, but again, as I said, they are more dedicated to those guest interactions, and they had a great guest list this weekend. One thing I will say, I don't know if you guys can quite hear it in my voice, I feel I'm masking it quite well, but I may have come back just a little sick from the event. I know my brother had a sore throat. I'm kind of feeling a little bit ticklish now, so if it is kind of coming out on the camera, I do apologize if I like sound a little bit weird. Hopefully with just a little bit of rest, that can clear, because yeah, I must say, the Liverpool show, I always come back feeling a lot more tired. You know, I have to stay up in a hotel. You know, getting like traveling is just tiresome in itself. Whereas when it is MCM or a London show, you know, I just travel back and forth on the tube, not very far. So, and you're sleeping in your own bed, which is far better, right? But yeah, really good show. I think for the most part as well, everyone seemed to enjoy it. If you go on the big Facebook group, the Comic Con Liverpool Facebook group, loads of people in there. I think there's like 40,000 members or something. Majority of the comments were very positive. You know, everyone was happy to meet fan favorites. Again, take photos, selfies, you know, get things signed. I've got 6 Funko Pops off here to the side, which I'll show you guys in a few minutes. Just wanted to kind of really give my thoughts and discuss some of the things, you know, at Comic Con Liverpool, which I guess let's go to like the maybe sort of negative or criticism, let's say, because I would definitely say some of it is just. I saw kind of 4 things that seem to be the, how to put it, like the main crux, for lack of a better word, that most people kind of have, or had, I should say. The show is now in the past after all. The first of those being, let's get this one out of the way first, because I don't think it was as bad, but Sebastian Stan, of course, the Winter Soldier, was one of the headline guests at the event. And on the Saturday, I didn't see too much in terms of the Sunday, but after the Saturday, there were a lot of people who were mentioning, you know, in that Facebook group and across social media, pardon me, that Sebastian Stan wasn't very like interactive, at least when he was doing the autograph signings. So many people said he wasn't like looking up, didn't say hello. He seemed to be incredibly tired, which maybe was right. He probably traveled from the US, was probably jet lagged. I know in the panel he did on the Sunday, where he actually seemed a lot more awake, he did mention he'd literally just been in his hotel the whole weekend, apart from when he was obviously at the con. But yeah, there were other people that said no, he was great. You know, in the photo areas, he was happy to do, you know, a lot of poses. I saw one girl flew from the States, and I think she bought something like 10 to 12 photo opportunities and had all these different poses. She'd like met him before as well, so that was crazy. I think he actually hadn't done a con for a while, like even in the US. I think it's been a fair few years because loads of people traveled over to see him. You know, in the panel, a lot of people were saying where they traveled from. There was like Sweden, there was Germany, someone had traveled from Australia, Mexico as well. I already mentioned that girl from the US, so it was a great turnout, you know, internationally. But yeah, sometimes I feel like, you know, we're human beings, right? And we all have our personality traits, and we all share a lot of traits, you know, as human beings, but we are also all individual, you know, at the same time. And so I kind of feel it's a bit of a case that we will have different levels of expectation as well as different levels of tolerance. Do you know what I mean? So when someone meets a guest, I don't doubt that there's, you know, elements of truth, but I don't doubt there's also elements of exaggeration as well when it comes to meeting someone. Like if you weren't happy with just a tiny little thing and it maybe ruined your experience, that you may go and exaggerate something. It happens, and then others will even downplay something sometimes. You know, I've always been like pretty easygoing, probably too easygoing for my own good. You know, there's probably times I could have benefited if I was like a bit more forceful, right? But I saw some people say the same thing about Rafe as well. Rafe Fiennes of Harry Potter fame, as well as many other things, was the other headline guest. I did actually meet Rafe. I'll show you guys my my signed pop of Voldemort and discuss my interactions with him in just a few minutes. But yeah, I'll say like the people that said there wasn't much interaction with him, I mean, I got some interaction, and it just, I guess, does depend somewhat on you making that interaction as well as just the guest, kind of like leaving it to the guest, if that kind of makes sense. So second on the list of criticisms, and probably the most major criticism, was actually directed towards the venue staff. And now this one I would actually agree with. So these were the guys in the pink outfits. They don't work for Monopoly events. As I understand, they work for the M&S Bank Arena, the ACC, the Exhibition Centre, like the Liverpool, I think it's called the Events Campus or something like that. It's now all kind of connected. And they're kind of like directing the queues. You know, it's a combination of like security and wardens, I guess, for lack of a better term. And yeah, definitely in the ACC when it got really busy, I don't think they handled things the best. You know, it had this kind of one-way system, and they would then sort of open up entrances where it got really busy. Look, I do think that that's something that should happen. Yeah, other entrances, especially when everyone's kind of crammed into one place. And look, these cons will always get busy. It is what it is. No one can complain about a con getting busy. You know, if you don't bring, you know, so many people will complain that, you know, I see it with MCM as well, which is pretty much double the size of Comic Con Liverpool. Too many people, you're overselling tickets, yada, yada, yada. But these same people probably then complain that the guests aren't good enough, the guests are too expensive, and yeah, it's just all nonsense, right? These cons, wherever you go in the world, are going to be busy. People are paying lots of money to come and see these guests, to come and have a good day. And Monopoly, in this instance, it's their show, are paying these guests a lot of money, big fees to come to these shows. So they have to sell these tickets, and, you know, it just is what it is in terms of the size of things. So when things do get like really mad and crazy, and it will happen at particular times, right? You know, especially if there's a really popular guest who's got, you know, signing at a particular time, or the photo area has a, you know, really popular guest, things are going to get really crowded. And so I do kind of agree that, you know, the security and whatnot do have to open up areas temporarily to let people through. But yeah, some of it just seemed manic, especially compared to like years gone by, I have to say. I don't really know if this one-way system worked quite well. I know there were a lot of people, you know, accessibility people who had a lot of trouble getting around and said they weren't treated with kindness despite even having like the Nimbus cards and things like that, saying people didn't really care so much for them. And, you know, that's a real shame to hear. So I don't really know what to say with that, because venue staff, I find in general, are just they don't really care so much, you know, they're not employed as such by the show organizer, again, Monopoly Events in this instance. So their job there is, you know, supposed to be around health and safety, and you could argue some of what they did, some of what I saw wasn't really health and safety conscious. There's other aspects as well, like when I'll go back to MCM, the final day when we were leaving on the Sunday, we did leave like right at the end of the show. I don't think I've ever stayed that late before, but that time I did. And yeah, the XL has what, like 6, 7 doors, 8 doors, and they were cramming people into the very far door on the right, and it was like, wow, there's like thousands of people trying to get out, and you kind of all start in the hall, and then you're all funneling everyone to this one bit. It was just ridiculous. And then they were coming into the crowd to bring out families with babies and young kids and letting them go in that side, which was the accessibility side to get out. But yeah, someone did mention to me that there were a lot of undercover police at MCM that day, and chances are they could have been looking for someone in the crowd, because when you kind of condense it down, right, easier to spot someone. And you guys may not know, there is a lot of theft. You know, I'm good friends with a lot of vendors that do, you know, all of these cons. There's a lot of theft, sadly, at cons. A lot of, you know, real horrible people out there just stealing stuff, but you're never going to get around that. So I don't know, again, if like crowd control is necessarily something to also you know, keep a lookout for these thieves or people causing trouble and whatnot. But yeah, it definitely caused some manicness, especially, is manicness even a word? You guys know what I mean, especially in that middle, that red hall, the ACC Liverpool. I felt things were probably a little bit better in the other two places, the M&S Bank Arena as well as the Exhibition Centre, but they're like so much more spacious. So third on the list of criticisms I saw across social media were aimed directly at the Monopoly staff. Well, I say the Monopoly staff, I felt it was more towards the volunteers, so the guys in the orange jackets. So many people saying that they knew nothing, didn't know where a guest was, they didn't know anything about the venues, you know, toilets, facilities and things like that. And, you know, I've been doing cons a long time, so I've almost given up going to any like volunteers and asking for help. But, you know, if it's someone's first time doing a con, or if they've only done one or two, I get it, you know, you need someone to assist you. And that's the thing, when these volunteers don't know any of this information, that is a bit bad, to be honest. And I 100% agree on it. I think if you are going to volunteer, you have to have a little bit of initiative. You should, I'm not saying you need to literally know every single guest, where they are exactly in the con, you know, that's, you know, I don't think that's an expectation. Maybe some people may have that, but unfortunately, as I said, we're all individuals and some people have higher levels of expectation, right? But I would like kind of expect you to have a list and know that, hey, this guest is in this hall, you know, your toilet facilities are over there. If you want some food stuff, it's over there. You know, if there's people asking questions about timetables and stuff, say if you go to the guests table, they have their schedule on there. You can find the schedule on Facebook, on social media. You know, it's those kinds of things. If people then say, oh, you're still not being helpful because you don't know exactly where this person is, that to me is ridiculous. No, they can't be expected to know that, but they should expect to know a lot of what I just kind of spoke about, right? So, and I don't think a lot of volunteers do that. I've certainly experienced it over the years. As I said, I've given up asking volunteers now. You know, when I look at con schedule, I can look at it 2 or 3 times and I've pretty much memorized where most people are. So I haven't got like the super best memory either. So I don't really think there's necessarily an excuse for volunteers. But at the same time, they are volunteers. You know, they're not being paid. They probably are given lunch and things, maybe even a free autograph, I suspect, or photo op or something with one of the guests. But yeah, I definitely agree. That criticism, I think, is fair. Those guys should actually learn a little bit more and be able to be more helpful rather than a hindrance. As for the Monopoly staff themselves, so the people who are actually employed and I would assume being paid, I didn't see too much criticism directed at them. There was a few comments made about some of the queuing systems, and I definitely did get to experience one which I wouldn't say was like horrendous by any stretch of the imagination, but I felt it could have been managed a little bit better. So that was Jason Isaac's queue. I did actually get 2 Funko Pops signed. Again, they're sitting to my right. We will get to those, I promise, in just a few more minutes. So we got to his queue, I can't really remember the timings, but he was at a photo shoot, and then he was supposed to come back for about 45 minutes to get some autographs out the way and then head off to another photo shoot. So he came back about 10 minutes late, which happens, you know, photo shoots, especially for popular guests, can overrun. But we're kind of there in the queue, and like looking back, the queue is still really long. There's like one lady kind of at the front, and then the queue kind of snaked in the, like, with the railings and whatnot. And then there's the table here where Jason is doing his signing, right? And the queue at the table where the lady's taking all the details, whether someone's paid or you've prepaid, whatever that was, that queue was like snaking back and almost going outside to where all the Manic stuff was, going up to the escalators and then into the M&S Bank Arena, the other venue. And I was like looking at the watch, and I'm like, I'm not so sure we're going to get to Jason here. He's already come a bit late. He's got to go and do a photo shoot after, and then he's going to have lunch. And I totally get that. You know, these guests have to go to the toilet. They have to eat. They have to be energized, right? So they can have that energy to give back to us when we meet them. But yeah, I saw this and I thought, people keep coming into the snake line in the railings. Like, should they not be telling people that, hey, you know, his schedule's nearly up. Do you guys want to come back later, or are you going to like wait now? And that just didn't really seem to be happening. So lo and behold, we got there to the not quite the front, and then the lady came out. She was very nice. She looked so kind of sad. It was so weird. I did actually take a picture of Jason's booth just to send to my friend. I'll pop it up there. But she was a lovely lady, but she just always looked so sad and kind of sympathetic to everybody. But she came out and essentially gave us all raffle tickets, and we were number 10 in the queue. So yeah, 9 people ahead of us. And said, yeah, come back after lunch and you guys will be able to, with your raffle ticket, rejoin the queue. And we did just that. But this was the thing, like, people had now started queuing, like in the like snake thing in the railings, if that makes sense. And then there was like some people who were like number 4, then there was the guy I remember who was in front of us, number 9, then there was like 13 behind him, then the people behind them didn't even have a raffle ticket. So that, in my opinion, was all a little bit messy. It should have been managed a lot better. From what I understood, because they had these whiteboards as well on the tables, where the lady was like marking off names or taking payments and stuff, and that's how I understood like any kind of virtual queuing would be made. So numbers like, let's say 1 to 30, those guys would now come in and then they wipe off and change the numbers, but that wasn't on our board. So I don't know if that's necessarily what happened for the for other guests for the rest of the weekend. I do believe it did, but I don't really know how well it worked. I saw there were quite a few complaints with Neil Newbon's line. He just seems to be ever popular from Baldur's Gate 3. Still yet to play the game, but I will definitely get to it. My gaming backlog has been atrocious. But yeah, I saw a lot of people, I say a lot, there were a fair few people saying his line wasn't managed very well. Felicia Day, who I did get to meet on the second day, but I hadn't prepaid her. So that was the other thing. But I would actually say they managed this queue quite well. So with Felicia Day, you had the Diamond Pass. So they're all the guys who get to jump the queue because they paid that, you know, big fee to essentially jump the queue. They then did a line for prepaid and then a line for pay on the day. And then, so all the diamond people obviously get the priority, right? And then they started doing the prepaid people, you know, once Felicia did arrive. And then I was like looking back going, you know, will we actually get into this time slot before she has to go and do a photo op? And then after the photo op, it was pretty much lunch, right? So it was still something for a couple of hours. And I was like, I kind of do understand it though, you know, we haven't prepaid and it is what it is. But we were standing right at the front of the queue. We were probably like the 5th person in the queue, but we then obviously got moved to the pay on the day queue. She was the only one I didn't prepay because I didn't have anything to get signed by her, but I did end up picking up the Charlie Supernatural Funko Pop again. I will show it to you guys in literally just a few more minutes. And Yeah, picked that up at the show from my good friends Cult Collectibles, who we do actually have an affiliate link with, by the way. Well, actually, it's not an affiliate link, is it? It's a code, pardon me. Geek Lounge, all in caps, no spaces. If you head to cultcollectibles.com and use that code, you will get 20% off your first order. I will have a link to their store in the description below if you guys did want to check that out and use our code. But yeah, I bought that Supernatural Charlie Vunga from them to then get signed. And yeah, they actually seem to manage the queue quite well. The lady there from Monopoly did quite well, I have to say, with those. Despite it being 3 queues, she handled it quite well. And to be fair, she even came to us. We had probably queued, it was about an hour or so, I would say. And she had let, obviously, all the Diamond people, the prepaid were coming in. But it's like she kind of knew who was there from the beginning, so to speak, for the prepaid. Diamond obviously should always really get the priority, and then she did eventually take my payment and I got my autograph and we got to see Felicia Day in good time. So different, again, I've said it twice, right? We're all individuals. Some people are going to have more initiative, going to be able to manage things better than others, but and then on the other side, us as the congoers, right, we're all going to have different expectations, different levels of tolerance. So it's just one of those things. Can they do anything better? I mean, if you're going to do like virtual queuing, I suppose, use technology, have apps and things like that would probably make things a little bit better. For the headline guests, they do kind of work it quite well because they essentially have time slots and things like that. However, something didn't go quite right with one of the time-slotted guests. And that was Peggy, aka Dogpaw, who has without question been the most popular guest of the year. People getting in on those photo ops as well as the portographs. I love that, portograph, such a great term to coin. But yeah, it seems that Comic Con Liverpool may be oversold this time. In terms of the numbers, a lot of people who didn't get to see Peggy, sadly enough. I don't know if it was both days or if it was just on the Sunday, but yeah, a lot of comments saying it wasn't managed well at all. We were told to come back, we came back, we were told to come back again, and then we would come back and told, no, that's it, we finished, we're so sorry, you need to go and get a refund. Quite a few people saying this. It's one of those things, Peggy is, surely everyone's seen Deadpool and Wolverine, right? It came out yesterday, right? I think on Disney+. So if you haven't seen it, go and check it out. But yeah, Peggy is, I don't know how you would describe Peggy if you haven't seen her, but she's a dog. I believe she won like the World's Ugliest Dog contest or something like that. But yeah, has disfigured, is that the right word to use? And so she does need like special care and attention and things like that. So it's not like she can be one of these guests who are literally there all day, every single minute of the hour for everyone, right? So I do kind of get that. At the same time, though, it's quite clear she was oversold, if people can't get there. Or I don't know, maybe they should put a thing saying, there's not necessarily a guarantee that you would get to see Peggy, but no con's ever going to do that because then you're probably not going to sell tickets necessarily, right? But it can happen to the human guests as well, right? Someone gets sick on the Saturday night, they can't do the Sunday. It's just sadly something that can happen, right? I don't really know what else to say other than it is unfortunate for those people, especially when they pay the money. And I know Ticket Quarter can be a little bit slow with their refunds. I actually haven't checked if my Aaron Moriarty refund's coming just yet. She unfortunately cancelled, I think, like a week, maybe even less before the con. So yeah, that's one of the criticisms though I did see. So again, whether it was a question, was Peggy oversold, or was it just a case, they had a bit of like an issue with her and she had to kind of be taken away. I think I saw, because they definitely made a Facebook post in the group, did Monopoly, saying that for anyone who'd booked, I think it was like a 3:30, 3:40 slot for photo ops. Please now come back at 4:40. We're going to do all of those together. So I guess Peggy needed, attention essentially, right? Or to be away from the crowd. So again, it's one of those sad things, but when a guest can't be seen, especially when, someone's paid for something, and especially when quite a few people paid for something and then didn't get it, it's always going to be a criticism that is, thrown against the con. For me, people will maybe call me a fence sitter, but I can honestly see it from both sides, right? Same if it was a human guest. It's not like they're there just for our amusement and like, you must bow to our whims and give us what we want, what we're paying for. But at the same time, we're paying a lot of money. So I can always see it from both sides. And I just realised I've probably been harping on quite a lot, haven't I? Let me switch things around and show you guys what I got signed. So the very first guest I met of the weekend was Elliot Page, and I got him to sign my Chase Vanya pop from the very first season of the Umbrella Academy. I think it's such a cool pop, and I got him to sign it with the white paint pen. I spoke to a few guys in the line because they were kind of like, I hope no one brings up like his, transition and things like that. From what I've heard, he's like totally open to talking, about it, talks about these old characters. We spoke very briefly about Umbrella Academy. I said I was like kind of gutted they didn't give you guys, season 3 Funko Pops, and like he agreed, he kind of wanted them. Asked if he had any other like kind of plans going forward that he could talk about, and he said unfortunately nothing that he can talk about. Just a genuinely cool dude. I think all the interactions I saw from the weekend with people making posts and comments were very very, very positive. I think it was a really cool guest to get, and I think it'd be awesome if they got him back at some point. Next up then, we have the pop I mentioned that I picked up at the show from my good friends Cult Collectibles, Charlie from Supernatural, signed by the wonderful Felicia Day. I did actually meet Felicia on the Sunday. She was the first guest I went to that day. As I mentioned, they had those kind of 3 different queues for her, which worked fairly well, to be honest. Had to queue for a good hour or so, but we did finally get to meet her. Felicia's absolutely wonderful. I kind of consider her almost like the queen of geeks, essentially, right? She'd asked where we were from, and we said, are you from Liverpool? Because I think we'd asked, how's it been for you? And blah, blah, blah. In Liverpool, she's like, it's great. I've always wanted to come to Liverpool. And she asked, is this where you guys are from? And I'm like, no, we're from London. And she's like, what the hell, dude? Why didn't I see you in London then? And I was like, basically, I didn't have the Charlie Pop at the time, and the year... Because I'm pretty sure she was at the show a couple of weeks ago, and then she was at the show in October last year when all the Critical Role guys were, and we spoke about them, and I said, that whole Saturday I literally spent in that one portion of the con. She talks about how those guys are her babies, and she hopes they let her kind of appear in and work in some of their shows going forward, which they've said they had. And I just said, I wanted to say, thank you so much for everything you did for those guys, and essentially to bring... she, not that she started Critical Role, but she was like the catalyst for their, essential growth, right? Or at least gave them that platform to grow, let's say. As I said, super cool. Again, she's such a bubbly personality. She was literally up, down, because so many people got selfies. It's not something I necessarily do, per se. I go for them sometimes, but, I'm still kind of trying to control my finances a bit for our big Japan trip next year. Again, all the interactions that I saw, people were very, very positive. And I don't doubt she'll be back at another Monopoly show at some point, maybe even for the Love of Fantasy in London in August next year. They've already got quite a few of the Supernatural guests there already. Next up, we got Ciri from the Witcher Netflix series, specifically the season 1 variant, signed by her actor Freya Allen. Now, Freya was actually the final guest I met on the Sunday. It's just the last 2, I figured we'll group them together and we'll save Ray Fiennes, the headline guest, for the final one, even though I met them the day before. That'll make a little bit more sense in a few more moments. But again, Freya was great, I have to say. Call me a simp, whatever you like, but she's a very pretty, very beautiful young lady. And she was just also very kind and very genuine, talking to everyone just before we actually got up to her. So there was one person ahead of us, and then someone was getting a selfie with her. and they had to take the time because a whole bunch of guests were kind of being kind of walked into their tables essentially. So the Monopoly event staff member taking the selfie, you know, kept pausing, and we kind of joked, oh, you could have got like a 2-for-1 or something like that. So they eventually took the selfie, and then the guy, I don't believe he got anything signed, but he wanted to do a magic trick for her, and she was game, and yeah, it was a pretty cool trick, to be fair. I don't really know how he did it. I don't even know what the trick was called, but it was pretty cool. And she was happy. She gave him a high five, and then we got to her, and I actually kind of fumbled a little bit. I was like, oh, what was I actually going to say to her? And in the end, I just came out with the very bland, yeah, can't wait for the 4th season of The Witcher. And she was like, oh, thank you so much. And I was like, I know you said, because I like watched her panel before, like the day before, and she mentioned she doesn't know an exact date yet for when it's going to release, but hopefully sooner rather than later. And she kind of said, yeah, I think it will definitely be, you know, we'll know a date quite soon, hopefully. And yeah, that was pretty much all I said. I kind of forgot what I was really going to talk to her and ask her about, which was actually going to be more about Ciri, and do you get like a cool arc? Do you get to be a little bit more badass with the character? And I forgot all to ask it. I think that magic trick dude threw me off. But yeah, I then kind of said, you know, it was awesome to meet you. And she repeated back saying it was awesome to meet you. And that also kind of threw me off a bit. But yeah, very cool. As I said, very, you know, lovely young lady. I think massively talented as well. You know, can't wait, pardon me, to see, you know, what she does next, even away from The Witcher. So shifting back to the Saturday then, the second guest I met at the show was Jason Isaacs. I actually got 2 Funko Pops signed by him, but neither a Lucius Malfoy. I actually don't own a Lucius Malfoy Funko Pop. My good friends Persona Toys had a bunch of the one with the, I think it's the Death Eater mask. I believe it was a Hot Topic exclusive in like the US and Canada, or wherever Hot Topics are. But yeah, I didn't have one, and I didn't end up picking one up because I'd already purchased that Charlie Funko Pop, which, if you guys don't know, you know, it's a vaulted one. It is fairly expensive, not like anything super duper crazy, but it's still an expensive one. And again, you know, I'm trying to save for Japan and whatnot next year. So you know, I haven't got a Lucius Funko Pop signed, but Jason Isaacs, he's from here. He does quite a few cons, pardon me. So we'll definitely add a Lucius to the collection one day. But I did get Admiral Zhao. If you guys watch my MCM Comic Con haul from a couple of weeks back, did get to meet a bunch of the Avatar: The Last Airbender guests. So we can now add a signed Admiral Zhao to the signed Avatar: The Last Airbender collection. And the other pop I got signed was the Star Wars Rebels Grand Inquisitor. Yes, if you guys didn't know, he voiced the character in the Great Animated Series, but he didn't do the character in the live action Obi-Wan series. It's something I actually asked him about. I said, were you offered? Did you not want to do it? And he said, yes, I was offered, and yes, I did not want to do it. He said he read the script and just found the whole character like rather boring in the show. And he said he didn't get to fight, he didn't really get to like wield that cool, badass looking lightsaber. You know, he said he felt just the character had a very boring time and didn't really do much in the show, especially to, you know, warrant having to put on all that makeup. And then he said he had a better part in the end. So, you know, if he got to fight and he got to do a bit more, he definitely would have been down for the role. And, you know, when I think back to the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, which I did like, I know it was kind of got mixed reviews, but I quite enjoyed it. The Grand Inquisitor was kind of the one character, I know, like the makeup and prosthetics, a lot of people were disappointed with it. I was myself. I definitely think they could have done a better job with it. Even though I do like, it's Rupert Friend, I think it was Rupert Friend who did the role. I think he's a marvellous actor. But yeah, when you think of like the character didn't really get to do much at all, didn't get to show the badassery that we saw of him, you know, in the animated show. So totally kind of got why he said that. He mentioned he actually had a better part as well. I was trying to look through his credits to decide what that was, but I don't know when Obi-Wan was actually filming, so I'm not too sure. He seemed to have loads of credits sort of between 2021 and 2022 anyway, so yeah, whichever credit it was, he was happier to do that rather than the live action. Regardless, I was very happy to get this signed. I did make a mistake though, because I'd asked him if he could sign Admiral Zhao in red, And he said, yeah, of course you can have whatever color you want. And then he just started signing, and I wasn't really quick enough because I would have actually preferred to get this signed in yellow to kind of go with the wording, to go with the like the yellow eyes as well. But yeah, it still looks good with a red. I mean, he's Sith, he's got a red lightsaber, right? So kind of makes sense. And if you guys, you can see clearly there as well on the Zhao Pop, he does kind of, when he does Funko Pops, he kind of signs a little bit over the, like, the head shot as well. Sometimes it kind of curls around the eye as well, which can look pretty cool, but I don't mind that. I think it does look cool. Let me know what you guys think. Would you be happy with, like, that, going off the window? On very quickly, I would actually say that Jason Isaacs was probably the MVP guest of the event. So many like positive stories, people really happy to meet him. He was charming, he was funny, he was very energetic. He genuinely seemed to be happy to be there, especially in the panel. Certainly in contrast to this man, the great Ralph Fiennes. I'll be perfectly honest with you guys, I wasn't going to go to Comic Con Liverpool. Then they announced Ralph, and I was like, that's a big seller for me. I've been a big fan of his for a long time. He's had some great roles. Schindler's List was a classic one. Voldemort, legendary character, and like In Bruges is one of my favorite comedy movies of all time. So yeah, once Ralph was announced, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going. And then I added the rest of the guests that I've just showed you guys to get some posts. There was Erin Moriarty. Did I mention her before? I think I did. She sadly cancelled a few days before the con. That's why I ended up really going with Felicia Day as well. But yeah, Rafe was, he's kind of like that classical theatre actor almost, right? Not that Jason Isaacs hasn't done theatre. I think he's done plenty of theatre, but he's just not quite got that same personality, let's say. So, he was a lot more reserved. And I think some people maybe, I don't know, again, I've said it several times, we'll all have our, varying degrees of like tolerance and expectation and things like that. And yeah, I don't know how many people expected him to be that more kind of bubbly and, jovial character. And I just thought, even before I met him, he's just not like that. That's not him. He's more this kind of classical theatre, not necessarily a posh boy, let's say, but I actually don't know what his like class and upbringing was. But yeah, that theatre type actor who's not going to be that jovial kind of, bubbly personality, if that makes sense. So, that was my expectation going in. I think a lot of people said that they didn't get too much from him, but then others were saying, no, he was nice. We got to speak and ask questions. I think there was something, I don't know if this was in the photo ops where people were saying, security was saying no touching, no handshakes, no hugs and things. And yeah, I think so many people said that he would like extend his hand to every guest and say, how's it going? What's your name? Etc. Etc. I didn't get a photo op. Just got this signed Voldemort. He even did character names. Some people said he had stopped the names on the Sunday because he was the last guest I saw on the Saturday. I had the last autograph session as well. So I don't know whether I was lucky. In the morning, maybe he was rushed a little bit more. But I think some people said they even got some quotes here and there. So there is a little bit of luck when you go into a con, to be perfectly honest, whether you will get something that you want or not. I didn't ask for that either. I did give my pen. I thought I'd go for that kind of Avada Kedavra colour scheme. Sadly, the pop isn't in the best of condition. The window and the front is generally okay. There's a little bit of damage on the back and the flap, but I do like that one with Nagini. I think it's a pretty cool pop. Pop in a box as well, who remembers them? But yeah, as I was going to say earlier, if you don't, sometimes I feel you have to be the one to initiate something with Rafe. If it's just a hello, are you going to get a hello back? It's kind of like online dating, right? You're boring hello, hi, how's it going? Is that enough for you to give an answer back, right? So I said, Rafe, thanks so much for coming. Enjoy your work all these years. Wanted to meet you, especially In Bruges was one of my kind of favorite films, and he kind of perked up a bit and was like, oh yeah, that was a it was a very, very fun role. And I said, yeah, very kind of different for you. If you've never seen it, go and watch it. It's such a different role for him. He's kind of like a Cockney gangster. Imagine that. Just talking about this classic theatre, almost kind of, really well-spoken actor, and then he's playing a Cockney gangster. He's so hilarious. The movie in general is hilarious. I love it. Dark comedy, though, just in case. I know some people may get a little bit offended by dark comedies, but I absolutely love it. And yeah, again, then I just repeated saying thank you so much for coming. He almost stole my pen. So his handler then grabbed the pen off him, gave it back to me, and yeah, that was it. I'm used to those interactions. I got to spend longer than I did with Ewan McGregor at Star Wars Celebration. That was very, very quick in and out, kind of like conveyor belt. I think that's the word I was looking for. He was very much conveyor belt. What do you want signed? What pen? What colour pen? Yada yada, sign, and then you're off. Literally got 10 seconds to say hello, and he was like, yeah, hey guys, thanks for coming. That was literally what I got from Ewan. So, this was definitely much more. But again, as I said before, I'm a bit easier going, maybe too much sometimes, but at the same time, I do feel you've got to initiate things. You've got to have that level of expectation when it's a bigger guest, an expensive guest. They've got to move them along. They've got to make their money back. They probably paid Rafe a pretty handsome fee to come and do this con. So, that's typically why, costs for guests, for autos, for photos are quite expensive. It's why as well some people say like selfies, should they be free? Are they, selfies are really expensive. Well, you know what, guys, if selfies were cheap or if selfies were free, no one would pay for the photo ops, would they? So it's kind of one of those things. But yeah, in general, Rafe was great. I'd love if he would do a con again. Don't know if he will. That's why I really wanted to come and do this one. He may have been like Helena Bonham Carter last year, who Monopoly said she would definitely come back. She hasn't, and I don't think she's done a con since. So I was kind of like, you know what? Rafe could be like Helena, one and done. So that's why I had to get this signed. And that was my signed haul from Comic Con Liverpool, November 2024. Final thoughts of the show. Again, had a really, really good time. If I was to give it a score, solid 8, maybe even an 8.5 out of 10. Great guest list. I had great interactions with everyone I met. Great cosplayers. Just had a really, really fun time. There are always things that can be better. Some of the queuing, definitely. The venue staff could certainly be a lot kinder. Food options, actually, food and drink options were a bit scarce, I have to say. They could have definitely been better. And as I mentioned earlier, I would definitely like to see some more brands, maybe some more exclusives. I don't necessarily know if it's going to happen. And I also think Comic Con Liverpool could actually do like a 3-day show. They actually started it out as a 3-day show. So they took over from MCM Comic Con. Once they sold, I believe, to Reed Pop, and the guy now runs MegaCon, if I'm not mistaken. MCM or Reed Pop pulled out of doing the Liverpool show. And then Liverpool City Centre, City Council, whatever, came in to Monopoly and asked them if they do, want to do a Comic Con Liverpool show. At least that's how I understand the history. And they've been doing it ever since 2018, I believe. And it used to be 3 days. I'd honestly like to maybe see it go back to 3 days. I think it's kind of big enough. But I guess only time will tell with that. But yeah, definitely a very solid 8.5 out of 10 from me. And well, guys, that brings us to the end of this video. So first and foremost, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend with me here on the Geek Lounge. It is very much appreciated, and I hope you did enjoy the video. If so, be sure to give it a thumbs up and drop some comments below. If you attended Comic Con Liverpool, how'd you get on? And as always, we've got plenty more content on the way for you guys, as well as another Comic Con, the last one of the year for me. And then we've got quite a bit of a rest. I'm actually kind of looking forward to the rest, and my bank balance certainly is as well. But we have MCM Comic Con Birmingham on the, I think, 27th of November. It's Black Friday. There's a few cool guests there. Christopher Judge, Daisuke Tsuji, is that his name? I think I'm pronouncing it right as well. He's the voice actor and motion capture of Jin Sakai in Ghost of Tsushima. I know Ode Fair is there from The Mummy and Resident Evil, and a few other guests as well. They've left it so late though to announce the guests. Really bizarre, but that hasn't actually stopped the tickets from selling out. But again, MCM, Birmingham definitely not as big as London, but it's still a fairly big event, and it's, there's a heavy cosplayer crowd there. So they're not like that guest dedicated. you know, as I mentioned earlier, like Monopoly event shows are. But yeah, we'll probably do some Funko Pop hunting as well. I did a tiny bit of hunting in Liverpool, but only really with my friends Cult Collectibles, so I didn't really gather so much footage to then be able to do kind of like a hunt video. But we'll be sure to do one at MCM Comic Con Birmingham. I'll obviously show you guys my sign haul, and then we of course have the usual Funko Lego statues, figures and TCGs all incoming as well, so make sure you guys stay tuned for all of that and more. What is the easiest way to stay tuned, you ask? It's very simple. Subscribe, hit click, smash that subscribe button and enable those notifications so you don't miss out on any of that future content. Guys, thanks again for watching today's video and we'll see you on the next one. Peace out, nerds.